Now, there are a few considerations that I wanted to kind of wrap up with now that we have a good understanding of how these tools function. We also can make more informed decisions if we consider the importance of transparency, copyright, privacy, and the environmental impact of these tools. So let's begin with transparency. Now, because these tools are essentially superpowered versions of predictive text, they will not give you the same answer every single time you use them. What's important is being transparent about this. Because the results are not replicable, it's important to document what you put into the tool and what it's giving you back. Because if someone were to do the same thing, they might not get the same answer. So it's important to keep track of that and also provide some kind of statement describing the nature of your tool use. Attaching screenshots, if you're writing something formally academically, a citation might be useful, but providing some kind of statement whenever you use it to explain to those who encounter your work, to say, hey, this is how I used the tool, and this is what it gave me, and this is how I worked with it, is really important. So a good example here for a narrative statement, you'd specify the artificial intelligence tool. So let's say Microsoft Copilot. I used it for interpretation, and then I clarify I used Microsoft Copilot to summarize my slide deck into a brief executive summary. So in the workplace, maybe you give a beautiful presentation, but you need to email your boss a really quick summary of that presentation. Maybe you use a tool, you feed it a specific thing like a presentation, and it gives you a summary that you can then adapt, correct, and pass along. You would want to clarify that this is what you did in the background so that everyone understands what actually went on. And if you want to learn more about narrative statements, I'd highly recommend this article called the Artificial Intelligence Disclosure Framework. This is linked in the library's AI guide, and I'll show you where to find this momentarily. But this gives you a really great overview of how to be really clear in explaining to others how you've used a tool and acknowledging it in your work. What's important to know is that nobody likes being duped. No one likes feeling tricked and feeling that someone is kind of shirking off their work by using an AI tool. We want to always acknowledge when we are using generative AI to support our work. And we want to make sure that we're really hands-on with that work. We're not just putting in a question and using the first output that we get. We want to be iterating what we're seeing, and we want to be hands-on with it, rewriting, editing, correcting, taking full responsibility for that work. The golden rule that I have is don't ask a generative AI tool to do anything that you wouldn't ask another person to do. So in the academic landscape, frequently I say, well, you might ask a friend to help you proofread a paper, check that all your commas and periods are in place, but you wouldn't ask that friend to write your paper for you. In a workplace, maybe you would ask a colleague to help you summarize a presentation, but you would probably also double check that, and you would acknowledge that this colleague helped you in doing that work. You wouldn't just take full credit and just submit the first thing you got. So we really want to be cautious about how we use these tools, acknowledge them, and don't allow them to replace the human labor that you're actually doing. The next consideration is copyright. So in Canada, there are lots of court cases currently ongoing. Everyone is trying to figure out if AI tools can actually freely use information and artwork and everything that's out in the world to train AI tools. So no one has a real answer there yet. There are also cases that are ongoing about whether generated content can be copyrighted. And most, at least, agree that generative AI is not an author in itself. But this leaves a lot of murky questions. Is it okay to use copyrighted material, input it into a generative tool, and work with its output? Will it keep that material and use it for training its system? And is it allowed to do that, or is it actually stealing? It's important to consider your own stance. So what do you think about the potential copyright implications using tools that did not seek permission from creators before taking their stuff and using it to train all of these generative tools? You might also want to consider what are the implications for your own inputs and outputs. Will the tools hang on to all of this material and then use it to further train the tools? Do you get to maintain copyright? There are a lot of questions here, and I think it's worth considering, especially if you're working with personal or proprietary materials. Do you want to share them with tools that could kind of steal them and use them to train whatever they want to be doing going forwards? And this leads me to privacy. What is shared online often stays online, and there's a lot of information that's already been scraped for training AI tools, and it was scraped without permissions being given. It's important to consider the information that you either directly feed into these tools and the information that you just share openly on the internet. So frequently, prompts and outputs are retained as training data. They could resurface if similar prompt patterns are used by other users. And a lot of the stuff that we share on social media, out on the internet, is already being scraped and used by these tools. If you use Meta AI to summarize part of your conversation, maybe consider what permissions are you giving Meta AI to actually see the personal private conversations you're having with your friends on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. So here's a quick little video that just explains some of the risks involved in navigating this world of information online and what's already being found in some of these tools.
Researchers just found hundreds of millions of personal documents in AI training data, including credit cards, driver's licenses, and social security numbers. They audited just 0.1% of one dataset called Datacomp Common Pool. In that tiny fraction, they found thousands of passports, birth certificates, and resumes with people's disability status and background check results. This dataset has 12.8 billion images scraped from the web between 2014 and 2022. It's been downloaded over 2 million times, and it's been used to train dozens of AI models. One researcher said anything you put online can and probably has been scraped. They tried to protect privacy by blurring faces, but their audit found the system missed an estimated 102 million faces. The worst part, even if you could find and delete your data from the set, it doesn't matter because AI models were already trained on it. Researchers just found hundreds.
So it can be a little bit scary navigating some of this, and it's important to consider how we can lock down our privacy a little bit more. We need to be aware of where we share our personal information. Do we trust who we're sharing it with? Will it be sold, manipulated, or otherwise shared? And this includes our likeness, images, videos, and audio, a lot of the things that we share now on social media. And in an interesting case, actually, I believe it's in Denmark, they have now allowed everyone to own the copyright of their own likeness. So if you see someone generating something that looks like you could actually have the grounds to sue in Denmark. So it's important to take ownership of yourself and your own presence online, and that includes your likeness. It's important to prioritize your privacy. This also goes for your intellectual property. If you're uploading things you've written into generative AI, be aware, is it going to retain that? Can you adjust your settings and turn that off? And if you're inclined to share personal or proprietary information, I maybe refrain from doing that because we can try to lock down our privacy, but it can be challenging depending on the tools that you're using. So I have here a screenshot of the settings in ChatGPT. I would encourage everyone explore the settings of the tools that you like to use and see if you can turn off things that say improving the model for everyone. That is what allows these tools to retain the information that goes in and out of, say, ChatGPT or another tool. So you can turn off improving the model for everyone. And if you also want to lock it down, I encourage turning off audio recordings and video recordings. This is also true of tools that increasingly have AI baked in. So Google Workspace and LinkedIn both have opt-out policies. So if you haven't opted out, you've by default opted in to helping them to improve the model going forwards. So you can toggle off the Google Workspace Smart features, and you can also opt out if you go into LinkedIn. So if you don't want your profile to be used for LinkedIn's training data, then go ahead, adjust your settings in there. It's important to know that in North America, we frequently have an opt-out option instead of an opt-in option. So if you're deciding on a new tool, some things to consider: evaluate it carefully. Look for privacy red flags. If there's mention of sharing your data, of third parties, of location access in the privacy policy, that might not be super secure. You should also beware of an advertised sense of urgency in action or using the tool or signing up now before it's too late. Like, that's just a ploy to get you involved. If something is free, especially, really, you are the product for sale. It's your data that they are keen to get. So just keep that in mind. And then finally, I also want to touch on the environmental impact of these tools. They feel intangible. They feel like you're just typing into a computer and you get a response, but actually they have a huge effect on the environment and on the communities where these big data centers that house all of this information, all of these resources, the toll is just incredible. So a few stats here from the UN Environment Program. AI-related infrastructure may soon consume 6 times more water than all of Denmark, than all of the whole country. I also saw another stat from the International Energy Agency that said by 2035, AI data centers will use more electricity than all of Japan, which is ridiculous. These tools do use more electricity than a Google search. Frequently, they're thought of as being kind of the same thing, but the implications of generative AI is much bigger. And also, there's a lot of raw material that goes into these data centers as well, and a lot of e-waste, including hazardous substances that come out of them. If you want to explore the environmental implications, I recommend the website whatusesmore.com. It allows you to compare the energy use of generative AI against other online tasks. So hosting maybe a Teams meeting for an hour, or watching a few hours of Netflix and you're streaming or scrolling on Instagram, you can see the environmental impact of all of those things, because whatever we do online, that digital footprint has real physical repercussions in the world. And I'm hoping that conversations that are coming out of this AI consideration for the environment will help us to become more aware of everything that we do online and its environmental impact.